Hey guys, today I'm talking with Grant Barth. He's the founder and owner of ThenWhat, a brand lab. He's been working with many big brands for many years. Both of us worked in Levi's. He worked at Nike as well, and his specialty is collaborations between big brands and artists and all that. And I was fortunate enough to help him, and he was a consultancy client of mine for a few good months. And since then, we saw that we look at marketing and branding in very similar eyes. He's like super interesting, and I think that the cool part about today's episode is that even if you don't do any collaborations, you should watch it because it gives you a lot of, you know, it's like tapping into how we marketing and branding people think and do things, and it will be very valuable for your marketing, whatever your marketing initiatives and activities are. So let's start. Hey Grant, what's up, my man?
Hey Dino, good to see you this afternoon.
Good to see you too. So, yeah, you've been working with big brand names for many years. Actually, we both worked in Levi's in totally different times, totally different locations. Would you mind tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, it's been a good journey. I have been worked in big global brands pretty much my entire career, up until starting my own consulting company about 3 years ago. I was 16 years with Nike, 10 years of that in Asia, and I was at Levi's leading merchandising globally for a good 5 years before I moved to Southern California and now in Park City, Utah.
And one of your expertise and the thing that you're focused on over the last few good years are collaborations with brands, right?
Yeah, that's a big part of what we do, and a lot of that is again based in my experience. I was in Tokyo for a good portion of my career and starting collaborations when with Nike at the time. So it's like early in the days when it was more just like an interesting idea to work with somebody new and different, and that became collaborations, which became kind of this movement of where we are today in the world, where collaborations come in a lot of different sizes, shapes, forms, and stories. So I do have a lot of experience in working with a variety of partnerships. So a lot of brands come to me now looking for those best practices.
Where would you say the difference between a collaboration and working with an influencer?
Mm. Well, first of all, a collaboration is where I think, the definition, at least for me, and one I definitely profess, is where you have two entities that come together from different worlds and they create something better together that they weren't able to do on their own. So it starts with this kind of authentic narrative and authentic story and inspiration and interest in each other. So that can come through to brands or companies working together to create a new product or a new idea. Or it can be, yes, through an influencer. I think the difference is it's very clear when two brands come together, like what they're coming to the table with. Usually it is either a product that they're both famous for or a new innovation or new idea that they want to test out with someone new. On the influencer space, it's more conceptual, more of an idea. And reaching a new audience and starting a new narrative is usually the purpose, for the collaboration. So I think there's like a different way to involve, and for us, we do strip a little bit of the sexiness of collaboration down to process, because process is really important, and because it lays out the reasons why the partnership exists. It also lays out everyone's expectations clearly up front. So no one's disappointed, and ultimately you get a better result for your target audience. What I found, through my experience, is that it has to have an authentic origin story in its inception. So there has to be this like immediate spark of inspiration, of interest, authentically. Like somebody on either side needs to get excited about working together, because ultimately a collaboration requires lots of resources, a lot of attention to detail. The time takes longer because you're working with parties who may not know each other or may not know how each other works. So there's some education involved. And there's always like a lot of a variety of stakeholders with any number of different key performance indicators, results that they want to drive that may not be necessarily built into the initial collaboration idea. So for it to be successful, you really have to work upfront onto why you're doing it in the first place, right? So it has to be, you have to really start and really document, like talk about and concept out like why you're even at the table together. And mostly the first starting point can't be more money. That should be the result when your target audience decides on the work that you do. It should not be the only single goal that you have when you start out.
It's super important what you just said. This is the reason. Making more sales, making more money, grow your revenues is the result. You need to go back to the why. Why is always the most important thing, which brings me to something you said before. You talked about narrative, you talked about story. I'm sure that many people heard about brand narrative, brand story. What does it mean?
I know it absolutely means that it's around the authentic origin, the initial reason why you started doing what you do. Building a brand, building a company, selling a product, creating a product. That's your story. And it should be interesting to your target audience. It may not be interesting to everybody, but the people who are buying your product or buying what you're, ultimately you're exchanging, their hard-earned money for, it has to be interesting to them. And it has to create, there has to be some emotional engagement, familiarity. There has to be empathy, seeking to understand, aspiration, something you can attain, or you just want to be part of a new tribe. So whatever it is, you need to really tell that origin story, and that becomes your brand story. And one important thing actually that came up, for me today is sometimes it's easier for, like, say, a founder or a small group to tell that story, but actually the brand story needs to be communicated over and over and passed on by many others. So it needs to be simple, it needs to be understandable, relatable, easy to tell, and ultimately emotional. And I think that's why people will want to restate it over and over again.
Yeah, I think that something like collaboration, is the essence of good branding and good marketing. Branding is not about creating a logo and designing a website. That's design. Branding is something so much more, so much deeper, and has something about emotions and feelings and thoughts. And when you create a brand, it has to be internally first. Everyone should understand what's the brand story, even if 100 years have passed, sometimes more than that, if we're talking about Levi's, or even if 50 years or 30 years have passed, it's really important for everyone in the company to understand what is the brand and why did we start? What are we fucking doing here? Why do we come to work? When we have that, you have a better, clear understanding of why should we do a collab with XYZ, and what is the essence of the collab, and that everything needs to be, just like you said, clear and understandable. Which brings me, when it reminds me when I did merchandising and licensing for MTV Viacom, a lot of our, a lot of what I had to do was being kind of gatekeeper. It's not just finding the deals. Okay, everybody wants a piece of SpongeBob SquarePants. It was like the biggest property ever. It's to make sure that the product that someone paid a lot of money for is organic. It's like authentic. It's real. It's super clear and understandable that that's the product. Oh, of course. So there are no question marks in the target audience's head. It's not just that they want it. They want it because it's obvious. Just like Supreme, when they do a collab, and they've been doing it for many years. We talked about Supreme so many times. I mean, again, they started in the 90s as skaters, as huge disruptors before this word even had a meaning. And they have done collabs since and till today. And the collabs that they're doing today with the biggest brands, and everything is totally on brand, from the campaign to the actual product. Now, when you work on something like that, how do you, because it's a process, how do you think about it? I mean, do you just come with an idea, or you start really think in the ideation process of specific elements that you would like to create as part of this whole collaboration?
Yeah, I think all the successful ones come with a really good concept. And sometimes, the idea can be right in front of you or very close in your life. I think the best ones come from like authentically, if an idea comes in, it's like really understanding with either the designer, the creative, the product developer, whoever is leading it. If there is like an emotional understanding or connection to that idea, that collaboration partner, a brand, and intellectual property, anything that's out there, there has to be this kind of inherent, wow, I understand what could be possible, but I've actually answered like the why are we collaborating first, right? So that has to be the first question, like, why is this even happening? Then it's like, am I inspired by this, this collaboration idea? Am I inspired or excited to meet this influencer, this artist, this new designer, this brand, a whole group of brand people who I might, come in contact with, and I might learn something. I mean, ultimately there has to be this kind of sense of wonder in what's possible to start. Again, those are usually come up with the best results, and that wonder passes through to the target audience all the way through the process. And they can, the audience can feel at the end that there was an authenticity there. Whether you like the end result or not, if you're authentic at the core, like everything is airtight, through the process. If you're going into it saying like, I can make more money at that, or I can be more influential, touch a new audience, I don't see that as like everlasting or brand building at all. It serves a whole nother purpose, and it shouldn't even be necessarily called collaboration.
Which brings me to something that you and I have been talking to on many different occasions. Building a brand and making sales are not always the same thing. Building a brand and building a product is not the same things. And when you create a good collaboration, it's so much so because it's not really about the actual product that it's about the collaboration. It's about the why. It's about the essence of the collaboration, what's behind it, the idea of this whole collaboration that found itself as a product, but it's not about the product. And you can see that the best marketing campaigns, advertising campaigns, the biggest brands, they don't talk about the product. They don't talk about the benefits of the product. They don't push the our product is good because A, B, C, you know. Again, we're going to talk about Levi's. We can talk about Nike. We can talk about Mac. You know, the biggest, most amazing ad in the world didn't have the product in it. The Mac, when they launched the Mac, the ad, the TV spot didn't have the product in it. Yeah. So, and again, they sold and made Apple what it is today. So you think that because you work with big brands, so there's like big budget, do you think that the crystallize the why is the less budget you need in order to make it a good collab, a good marketing initiative?
No, I don't necessarily think it's like, I think you just have to really define that purpose, you know, first, and you have to build the end in mind. I do feel like the best collaborations are built with a strong budget upfront. I mean, you have to do the tactical details. Because once you get those questions answered, then it should be like run smoothly, because the hard part is working through the co-creation, the approvals internally, externally, with another collaboration partner, you know, and bringing them on. There's a lot of details and hurdles to run. The more you can plan up front, think about the end in mind. Is this going to be digital? Is it going to be digital retail, physical retail, pop-up? What's the marketing spend? What are the overall goals? You know, who are you really trying to reach? Who's the narrative you're talking to? The more of those answers you can get up front, and then you can put a price tag to actually execute them to perfection, the better the collaboration is going to be, because then the creative really starts to be the leader through the process. Not, do we have enough money and should we cut corners here? But I think any great idea can be done at any cost, to be honest. It just has to be a really great idea. That's where I think big corporations need to like step back and see how and small ones too, like, everybody, what does collaboration mean to my overall brand statement, into the mix, the product mix, the marketing mix, the story mix, you know, that you're going to tell. What purpose does it serve? Why am I doing it? Why is it important? How much resource do I need to allocate to make it happen? What is the talent needed to ensure that everyone kind of is felt treated in the same way throughout the process? Again, it does become like an art of working with people, and hence the word collaboration. And I think that needs to be well thought out from any level of organization.
So you say, don't just jump into collaboration because it sounds really cool to have a collab.
Exactly. If it comes natural, if it comes inspired, if it's exciting, if you're going to put energy to it and you have people working on it that's also excited, then that energy will push the project all the way through, and it will be successful at the end. But if those things aren't really well thought out up front, I think then it just becomes a lot of heavy lifting and frustration throughout the process.
You know, we can talk about it for another 2 months, you and I. But I really liked it. I think that it gives a lot of, you know, food for the brain for people to think about collaborations, about influencers, about content marketing, about telling a story and using the brand for your marketing, using the why for your marketing. I think, what you do is like an amazing example for that. So thank you so much for your time. It was awesome. And
Absolutely.
I'll see you pretty soon, I guess.
Always, Dino. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks.